Good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Good morning.
My question to you is, what happens when we die? Our mind, our body, our soul. What happens when we die? Well, we have a lot of cultural traditions and religious beliefs in relation to what happens to our mind and our soul, because we really don't know what happens to them. We also have a lot of traditions and beliefs regarding what happens to the body, because that we do know what happens. There's a reason that this is called the remains. It is the remains of whatever made you you. It's a body. Your mind and your soul, we don't know. Your body, we do. Eventually it is going to disappear. Now, a lot of cultures and religions say we need to bury it, or cremate it, or burn it on a pyre, or perhaps return it to the sea. Whatever it is, it deals with the remains and what happens with them so that they can disappear. Unless, of course, you're frozen, cryogenically frozen, that is, in which case you're going to be around for a long time, maybe not forever, but we don't know the results of that yet. I never really thought about what to do with my body, about what to direct my remaining family to do with it. I always had on my license to be a donor, an organ donor. I knew I wanted to do that, but I never really thought about my body, the rest of it, except for perhaps cremation. What changed my mind so absolutely and completely about what to do with my body was attending the Body Donor Memorial Service in San Diego. It was absolutely wonderful. I had no expectations going into it. I didn't know. I thought perhaps, maybe there'd be 50 or 100 people and, they'd say a few words and we'd release some balloons or some such thing. Well, what happened was my niece Brand and I went to the campus, we parked, we walked up the hill, and we were met by this huge tent with chairs and a stage and a reception area. And we were greeted by all of these young men and women in white coats. This was the class of 2026, the medical and pharmaceutical class of 2026. And they had organized and they did this event. Now, I had always thought, it'd be creepy to donate your body to science. You don't want to be on some cold slab and sliced and diced and, I don't know, just, the gallows humor comes out and all that kind of stuff. These folks showed me how different those bodies are treated and beheld. This class, as I said, they greeted us, and it turned out, we asked when we said, how many people are going to be here? There were 1,000 people there. 1,000 family members of body donors were at this event, and that was just the ones who accepted the invitation. And before you is the program that they put on. The whole thing, as I say, was organized and presented by the class. They had things, there was the opening speaker, of course, and each speaker, each person we spoke to, shared a little bit about what they experienced and learned from this generous gift that had been provided them, because they considered it a generous gift. The first speaker spoke about how at the start of the year they wrote a letter to their body, and then at the end of the year they wrote a letter to their body. So they had two letters. They took those letters out to the memorial site, which is a plaque in the ground with a bench, very simple, that overlooks the ocean. And at that point, they burned the letters. This was a very personal event for that person and for their body. They got to know that body extremely well over the course of the school year. There was a young gentleman who sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." There was a poetry reading. There was a duet, 2 duets, 3 duets, actually, and a dance performance. All of these done by the class of 2026, and this is clearly not their area of expertise, which made it so much more special and endearing because they wanted to do this, even if they made mistakes, which they did. One gentleman who was playing the guitar, he got lost. He said, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. And then he found a spot and continued. One of the singers hit a bad note, and you could just see him kind of cringe a little bit, but he went on. They were so generous with their time and their thoughts. What I came away with from this wonderful event was how those bodies are treated with respect, and how much gratitude this class had in being able to learn from them. They got to know them by tattoos, scars, piercings. They felt as though they learned a little bit of the personality of that person that had existed before. Frank and I, when my parents passed away, we got a niche at Roseville Cemetery. And I always thought, well, I'll have my cremated ashes put there and that kind of thing, you know. I feel it's important for future generations to have a place to go to see a name and the year's birth to death. But what I realize is no one needs to know what's behind that niche, if anything. There doesn't have to be anything behind it, as long as it is there to remember me and for future people to walk through the cemetery, which we all know cemeteries are full of stories and history. They have a place to go, but I don't have to be there. I have made a decision to donate my body to science and research based on this event and the gratitude and respect that these people showed to the opportunity to learn from the real